If Africa is the richest continent on the planet, how come it's the poorest? In case you didn't know, Africa is the richest continent on the planet, with about 30% of natural resources needed in the world found in Africa. How can a continent with about 30% of the world's resources be the poorest? Most African people live in abject poverty. Africa is underdeveloped, the infrastructure is outdated, there are a lot of socio-economic challenges affecting Africa at the moment, and a lot of conflict. How come Africa is where it is with all the resources that it has? I would like to think that we are where we are because we have failed to move away from the victim mentality, where after so many years of liberation, we are still dealing with the post-traumatic stress disorder of colonialism, and we keep going in circles, dancing in the same place without real progress. And you wonder what real progress means for Africans. Some attribute the poverty in Africa to brain drain. Usually the most educated Africans tend to move to first world countries. They go and build those countries at the expense of their own continent. But I beg to differ. I feel like as Africans we have failed to fill the vacuum that now exists between the resources that we have and the end product. We have failed to industrialize. We have failed to come up with real plans or solutions on how to industrialize. I believe through industrialization, that's when we will be able to fully harness the potential that we have as a continent. How do we industrialize Africa when our infrastructure is so outdated? I guess we have to shift our focus from being people that are more concerned with lavish lifestyles, and we have to move away from being people that are more concerned with this consumer mindset where we use millions of dollars to purchase goods and products from first world countries, especially China and USA. We have to move away from that and start manufacturing our own products. It sounds a bit complicated and it sounds like a mammoth task. But remember, for those countries to become industrialized, for them to be what they are today, somebody had to build that infrastructure, somebody had to innovate, somebody had to build those industries. And they were leaders, trendsetters, pioneers who led the industrial revolutions of those countries. And Africa right now, if you look at where the world has gone, we are strategically positioned. And we can simply lead the next industrial revolution because we have lithium reserves. We are strategically positioned, and right now the world is going through an industrial revolution, or let's call it a tech revolution, an AI revolution, where people are now moving towards data farms, and we see that there's a lot of movement going on in the tech space, the introduction of electric vehicles, and also ultimately just the whole green energy vibe going on, the green energy revolution. For there to be a solar farm, there needs to be a lithium battery that can be used to store that energy. There is a need for us to keep exporting raw materials. There is a need for us to keep buying finished products from other continents. We are the ones who should be leading this revolution, manufacturing the batteries, manufacturing the solar products, and using the available resources to push our own agenda. We also need to consolidate the power that we long relinquished to our former colonial masters, because it appears that for most African countries, freedom is ceremonial, because empowerment really lacks when you look at how the individuals live. So if we are to talk about the transformation of African lives, if we are to talk about the transformation of Africa as a whole, as a continent, then the starting point is the empowerment of the majority of the people. And Africans must move away from this dependency syndrome where they constantly have to go and beg for support from first world countries. And we have to create our own solutions for our own problems. As long as we are riddled in debt and the debt is tied to deals that force us to surrender our natural resources to people who give us money that they control, we will never get out of this mess. We have to redefine our thinking and move away from being a continent that depends on other people for support and create our own solutions. We have to have our own financial systems, that are parallel to organizations such as the IMF, the World Bank, and in so doing, we are safeguarding our own interests because we are the ones who will make the ultimate decisions. And also, when we go back to look at the issue of how, as Africans, we have this dependency syndrome, when some few countries have managed to fully emancipate and empower their majority, we have to come up with a way to open up our borders. In opening up of these borders, perhaps if it's not a general consensus where it's a unanimous decision, where everyone is in agreement, perhaps those countries that share the same mindset can lead this revolution of opening up borders, creating free trade, free movement for all Africans. Yes, there are a lot of differences that exist between African countries. For example, if we look at the number of languages that are spoken in Africa, we just have a lot of diverse cultures, diverse traditions as compared to maybe the United States. But what we have is the spirit of Ubuntu. We are one in our thinking. We all come from the same root. So we can use that as a founding idea to unify Africa without necessarily becoming one state, because that's a mammoth task on its own, considering the differences that exist in how most of these states are founded. We have countries that are still being ruled by monarchs in Africa. We have countries that believe in democracy. We have countries that are military states. We have all these different systems of governance. So for us to say we can have one unified country with all these different polarized ideas, it might be a very tricky situation. But what we can have are remedies that accommodate everyone, regardless of the other differences that exist. Because honestly, if the conflict that exists in Africa exists because people are constantly trying to control resources, the wars that we see in countries like DRC, it's just a war for control of resources. And if we look at what happened in Libya a few years ago, it was also a struggle for control of resources. We have these different groups that are striving to continue controlling these resources, and they will never agree to a situation or a time when they have to relinquish that power in order to unify Africa. But in so doing, if we identify everybody's interests and build on that, we may be able to crack the code for Africa's development. And this code revolves around the boosting of economies, creating a fail-proof economy that serves everyone, and creating a system that makes everybody profit. Countries have to get into agreement, perhaps with regards to infrastructural development, How do we coordinate? How do we work together in order to create unified solutions? So these are some of the issues that need to be looked at in order to have a different Africa in the future. And ultimately, as Africans, we have to understand that today we exist as custodians of our continent. We are not going to be here forever. So we cannot be always digging and exploiting this continent without thinking of our posterity, without thinking of the future. If we really want Africa to rise, if we really want Africa to change in terms of outlook, appearance, and even status, we have to put Africa first. We have to put African people first. We have to put ourselves first and safeguard the resources that we have now and ensure that we are not getting looted from every day. We are not getting robbed every day by these first world countries. So we have to try by all means to maximize profitability on each extraction that we carry out. So from each extraction of a natural resource, we must have a system that makes us benefit 80% of whatever comes out of that particular extraction. The 20% that remains must be shipped out, but the rest of it needs to stay. And we have to put in place industries, plants, factories, and all the necessary channels and platforms and systems to make sure that this happens. Let's put Africans first. We are already very educated, though most people are currently living in abject poverty. I believe this poverty can end, but we just have to change our mindset. We have to change our attitude. We have to change our way of thinking. We have to look at Africa as our home, not look at Africa as a beehive where we just go to take the honey and we just take as much honey as possible and we go eat it elsewhere. Africans must learn to invest at home. We are living in a continent that is laughed at all the time, and most of our educated people end up going to work overseas, making a lot of money there. But when it's time to invest, some of them, after becoming millionaires, they are buying lavish homes in those first world countries. Whereas the Africa that they ran from, the Africa that they really love, needs their resources. It needs their investment. So Africans must be able to invest back home. They must be able to build those mansions back home. They must be able to build those shopping malls back home. If $5 million is required to build a shopping mall and you only have 50,000, why not come together and create some kind of cooperation or cooperative that works together to make sure that whatever investment needs to be done is made possible. And Africa must just try by all means to relax the laws when it comes to investments by the locals. Africans must be given priority, and we must not face the same stringent investment expectations and regulations as if we are foreigners in our own countries. We have to try by all means to relax the laws and make it easier for Africans to trade, make it easier for Africans to conduct business within the continent. So these are some of the policies that need to be put in place. The tariffs that exist for Africans trading with other African countries must be inspired by Pan-Africanism and not be inspired by any other ideology. Pan-Africanism must lead the revolution for Africa to become what it was destined to be.